This episode of Yeah, We're Going There is brought to you by Kindra. Kindra products offer full spectrum relief from vaginal dryness, discomfort, sensitivity, itching, burning, and stinging. Their products, which include vaginal moisturizers, silicone lubricant, and pH balanced shower and bath gel, are clinically tested and OB-GYN approved. Hormone free, paraben free, phthalate free, and FSA, HSA eligible. Recommended by over 7,500 medical providers and loved by over 330,000 women, including myself, I personally love the vulvovaginal hydration and relief duo and use them on the nights I don't apply my vaginal estrogen. To save 20% off your next order, go to www.ourkindra.com and enter code Dr. Natalie at checkout. I really think you'll love it as much as I do. This is Yeah, We're Going There with Dr. Natalie, breaking the silence on pelvic health for women and men. Yeah, we're going there because knowledge drives better health. Dr. Ann Collins Duch is a board-certified pelvic health physical therapist and an ERYT 500-hour yoga teacher with 28 years of experience in treating a wide variety of pelvic health conditions. Her Wilmington, Delaware private practice is housed within a vibrant yoga studio where she's able to educate her patients and yoga students on the benefits of establishing a sound movement practice that integrates effective nervous system regulation strategies for a more complete whole body experience. Dr. Duch has a special interest in the polyvagal theory, which led to the development of her virtual course offering, What Happens in Vegas Doesn't Have to Stay in Vegas, Nervous System Regulation course. She served as a panelist at the Endometriosis Summit, the Ehlers-Danlos Global Learning Conference, and the Pelvic Global Menopause Conference, and presents to various professional organizations and fellow clinicians about pelvic health topics, as well as the use of vagal toning strategies as part of their health and wellness management. Dr. Ann, welcome to Yeah,
So
We're
happy to
Going
be
There.
here. I love it. So happy to be here. It's funny to hear someone talk about you while you're sitting right in front of them. So yes, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. And just so that the audience knows, we met doing our doctorate.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes.
it was at graduation, I think, that we met.
Graduation. Yeah. Graduation. We were in like two different cohorts, but we became fast friends. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And just quick question just before we dive in. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to specialize in pelvic health?
Yeah. So again, when I graduated from PT school a million years ago now, I was pretty sure I was going to do sports ortho. That was going to be, I was an athlete my whole life. That's what I was kind of going into. Worked in a very busy outpatient clinic, and I was one of two female physical therapists. It was a very like ortho, no disrespect to the ortho bros. It was a very ortho bro clinic. Anytime someone was pregnant or had, any unmentionable problem, they would end up on my schedule. So for the purpose of thriving in that space, I thought, well, I better bone up on some of this stuff and figure it out. And then my then boss came to me one day and said, I really need you to go do some of that women's health. And the word he used was shit. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Yeah, I need you to do some women's health shit. I was like, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I sort of talked him into sending me to a course out in Seattle. It was a long time ago. So it was the Herman and Wallace, one of the first iterations of their pelvic health continuing ed classes. And I fell in love with it. It was a pregnancy and postpartum class. That was kind of my segue in, which then led into pelvic pain and urinary incontinence and all the other constipation, all the other fun things that we treat. So I came into it by accident, but fell in love with it pretty darn quickly.
I totally get that. So for our audience who's probably never heard of polyvagal theory, how would you explain it in simpler terms?
Yes. So through the course of treating folks with pelvic health challenges, what I noticed was oftentimes I didn't feel like I was even doing very much. Someone would come into my treatment space and I would kind of sit with them and hear their stories. And we would talk about I'd validate what they were doing. And I could see in the course of sitting with them, connecting with them, later the term I would use is co-regulating with them, I realized that was a big component to what they were experiencing. So it seemed like nervous systems were dialed up a bit. So through the course of like figuring out this nervous system piece of all of these different conditions I was working with, I fell into polyvagal theory. And really, how I fell into that again was by accident. I was co treating a patient with a mental health therapist who I'm friendly with, very friendly with. And she had said to me, "Hey, you do a really great job of co regulating with your patients. They feel really safe with you." And I thought, isn't that normal? And she said, "You should really look into this polyvagal theory. I think you'd connect with it quite a bit." And all polyvagal theory is taking that kind of pretty well known version of the nervous system where we're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and digest, right? And it takes kind of that notion of the nervous system and it dives a little deeper and looks at sort of three components of the nervous system where what is our level of safety and what is our nervous system doing to help us feel safer? And that might be we're co-regulating with someone, like in speaking to you, like even though nervous, at first, once we start talking, I'm like, oh, this is my friend Natalie. We're just having a chat and my nervous system starts to settle. Then we do have that sympathetic side of the nervous system. That would be the fight or flight. And that is where our nervous system is seeking safety by mobilizing us. It's not always helping us get safer by mobilizing us, but that's what our nervous system thinks we need or what we're being driven to. Or the other side of the nervous system, rest and digest, which would be the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. Polyvagal theory looks at that side and says you can be rested and digested, which is like a nice, comfortable place to be, or you can move all the way into a shutdown version. And that would be your system is just so taxed that you kind of go into this collapsed side of the nervous system. You just can't possibly do anything. So we've got safety, we've got the sympathetic side of the nervous system, the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, and kind of this collapsed side of the nervous system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've actually, believe it or not, taken your course twice. A few weeks ago, I was re-listening to it, and there's at the very beginning when you're talking to Tracy, who hosts your course,
Uh-huh.
she introduces you and also mentions how you guys graduated together.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And then and one of you said, "Oh, look, and Natalie's there." And I'm like, I did a double take. I'm like, I guess I heard this one before.
Oh, that's so funny. You're like, and there you are again. And there you are again.
It was very
Yes.
cool, actually, but
Yes.
I
Oh, that's
loved it. And I
funny.
find it so interesting because actually, from a personal side, I see that when my son becomes, and this has nothing to do with pelvic therapy, this
Uh-huh.
is more, I guess, behavioral. When my son becomes overwhelmed, he shuts down.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of made your whole theory help me better understand that.
Yeah, and how can you co-regulate with him to bring him into a better sense of regulation? Again, the term regulation gets thrown around quite a bit, and I've tried to change how I speak about that. And I talk about how can we make your son more adaptable and more flexible to that feeling of shutdown. And yes, there's times where we're shutting down, and that's on one end of the spectrum for folks who've experienced an incredibly traumatic event. It's important that we reframe a shutdown in a traumatic event as that was your nervous system keeping you safe. And I think I'm in my treatment space right now. I've been in this space with far too many, mostly women who have experienced a shutdown. And of course, the world is judging and saying, well, why didn't you just get up and leave? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you this, that, or the other? When we're talking about a traumatic event. And, we need to make sure they understand that was not a possibility. Your nervous system was keeping you safe the best way it knew how, and that was it. The type of shutdown you're talking about with your son is a lesser version of that, but it's still that feeling. And we've all experienced that where we've had a crazy week or a crazy
Right.
period of time. And we go home and we're just like in front of the TV and like, I can't move at all. Right.
I
And
feel
that's a
like that
different version.
happens. Yeah, I feel like that happens to me every day after work. It's like, just
Correct.
don't talk to me. I just need to do nothing.
Yes. And I think people in helping fields like ours, so healthcare providers, service providers, anyone who is doing this all day with folks and co-regulating it at a high rate, it is taxing, it is exhausting, and that recovery is necessary, right? It's just a matter of, can you recover, adapt, and then do the next thing that you are required to do, or wake up the next day and do the next thing.
Or do it
That's
all
important.
over again.
Do it all over again. And I would say in this particular time that we're living in, we've gone from frenetic things, COVID being one of them, to all the unpredictability there. And we're on the other side, and all the other things that shall not be mentioned here. But on the other side of that is exhaustion, right? So
Mhm.
it's this frenetic pace and then exhaustion. How do we recover from that and pick up and move on to the next thing that we should be? Not should be. We got to stop shoulding probably, but what would be the next best thing for us to be doing?
So when you say the phrase regulate your nervous system, what does
Mhm.
that really mean?
Yeah. So again, our nervous system is not supposed to be, I think there's this notion, and I think it's a little bit of that toxic positivity notion, that our nervous system should just be like this all the time. It should just be able to let everything just roll off our back. And that's just not how the nervous system is designed, right? The nervous system is designed to take some amount of stress, some amount of something that we have to take action about. And then, can we recover from that action that we had to take? Or when we're in a period of shutdown, can we mobilize and get back to some version of whatever it is that we have to do, whatever our responsibilities are, etc. So the regulation part is the adaptability, the flexibility to go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And somewhere in the middle here, regulate with the people around us, connect to things that feel safe to us. So for some folks, it's going out in nature and taking a hike, right? That's like, whoo. For some folks, it's listening to music. For some folks, it's hugging your puppy. For some folks, it's having a meaningful conversation with someone that helps bring us back. And I like to say the connection that I'm talking about is not just you and I as buddies talking. It can be that experience we have at the grocery store where the cashier checking you out, you have this kind interaction and you look at each other and you connect. And when you leave, you're like, huh, that was a really nice person, right? We're talking about these little bits of regulation throughout a day that fill up over time.
I love it. That was really I really understood that, so thank you.
Great.
That was
Great.
great.
I'm glad.
So the vagus nerve, why does it play such a central role to our health?
Yeah, great question. So polyvagal comes from the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a cranial nerve that comes from our brain. There's two of them. It passes brainstem down behind our ear. A branch of it goes to different parts of our face, our vocal cords, our heart goes through our diaphragm and into our gut. So the vagus nerve is this big, long, it's called the wandering nerve. It's a cranial nerve that is really important, not first of all, because it is so long and it affects so many different parts of our body, but it is a bidirectional nerve, meaning it is constantly sending information from our brain down into our body. And it's collecting information from our body and sending it back up to our brain. So, this is bidirectional communication whereby your body, the way you hold your body, tension in the body, or the way that your posture is, can send a signal to the brain to say, we don't feel okay down here. We're not sure why. And it's happening subconsciously, right? It might be where you're clenching your belly tight all the time. And that's sending a signal to the brain to say, something seems to be going on down in her belly. And then we also have the volitional part in our brain that says, take a deep breath, try to manage your anxiety by, and this is going to be anybody that experiences true clinical anxiety or depression will hear some of these things and be like, this is this girl telling me just to breathe again, and that's going to make everything better. And that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the vagus nerve can be an important piece to quieting down some of the nervous system situation or ramping it up if that's the thing. If someone is in shutdown mode and they need to mobilize, you can use that vagus nerve and some of the toning techniques that we do to affect the nervous system in both directions.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna actually get into that.
Great.
So, how does our nervous system decide whether we're safe or threatened, even when we
Great.
aren't consciously aware of it?
Great question. So there's a term, and Dr. Stephen Porges is the person who came up with the polyvagal theory. And there's been some arguments in the science community back and forth over not the what, but the how of the polyvagal theory. So we don't need to get into the weeds with that. But A term that he coined is neuroception. And neuroception is your body, your system taking in cues from its environment, from its surrounding, from inside your body, from the environment around you, and then what's happening between you and other nervous systems in your purview. And it is making these kind of judgments on safety below a conscious level. An example of this would be, and you've probably heard this example, an example would be is if I walked into my lobby out here and two people were already there and they just had a really awful fight. You know, when you open the door and you step into a space where something has just happened, you have this spidey sense we talk about. It's like, whoa, something just happened in here. I don't know what it was. But before you even take too much stock in what's happening, you can almost feel it, right?
Mhm.
And some folks have an increased sensitivity to that type of input, and it puts them on their heels very quickly. Then we've got other people who would walk into that scenario and be like, oh, I wonder what's going on. And they're very comfortable trying to ascertain more information, right? And that's happening just like that. So your system's constantly taking in how bright are the lights? What's the background noise? Things that you're not consciously thinking of, but your system's making a determination if it wants to stay in that system or run from that whatever's happening at the time.
Okay, so I think something just clicked for me. So, background noise. Is background noise because our nervous system is deciding to tune it out versus focus on it?
Correct. So this is really important too because your nervous system and my nervous system might be annoyed by different levels of background noise. We might like the background noise. Some folks love white noise, and I think the majority of people would say, "Oh, I love white noise," but then there will be people where white noise makes them bonkers. And this is what I try to say: no one nervous system is going to respond to input the same. It's just
Right.
not. So yeah, it's how much your system can take whatever's coming in and decide to tune it out, or just it's impossible to do that. And do you want to tune it out? That's the other
Right.
thing. How does this feel to you? Do you want to stay in this environment taking all of this in or not? I used to be okay in crowds. I don't feel comfortable in crowds anymore. I don't know what that is. It is something that's happened over the last couple of years. I'm like allergic to it. Might be COVID. I don't know.
Mhm.
But now crowds are just like, ooh, don't feel good here. I got to get out of here. Let's go.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
So, many people don't immediately think of the nervous system when they think about pelvic pain or pelvic floor dysfunction. How are they connected?
Yeah, so I try to get the conversation geared more toward everybody, making sure that they're at least considering what the nervous system is doing, kind of taking that bird's eye view. Again, when we talk about how your body reacts to different inputs, what I've seen through my years with pelvic pain, constipation, those are two big ones, where gripping and tension in the body, unbeknownst to the person experiencing it, can often lead to an upregulated nervous system. The nervous system is just kind of like, what's happening here? You're giving my brain the input that something is important down below, that something is gripping for some reason. Are you getting ready to run? Are you getting ready to, what's happening here? And that will cause the input of the nervous system. I like to talk about the nervous system as a stereo, right? It has a dial. That dial gets turned up or gets turned down. You might wake up today with your nervous system dial on 10 out of 20, or you might wake up today with a much higher nervous system. And then where does that input go? It goes to the body. The body reacts to it, usually with tension. And then that tension causes the nervous system to be ramped up even more, potentially. Potentially. So the body and the brain are constantly talking to one another below the surface level. And if we're getting extra tension in the body, that can definitely have an influence on pelvic health conditions. We know this, right?
Right. So, for example, and I'm kind of trying to put it together here. So,
Yes.
you are anxious, you're tense, your muscles tense up. That contributes potentially to pain. When you're in
Mhm.
pain, you're guarding more. It becomes like a vicious cycle that
It is.
we
Pain
need to
causes
learn how to.
spasm.
Right.
Yes. And where can we break that? Where can we break that pattern? And again, hear me when I say this is not about taking someone who's had persistent pain, pain with intercourse, constipation. Again, I keep bringing that back because that is often an upregulated system. That is not saying you just need to breathe and you just need to do this, that, and the other, and everything will be fine. This has to happen in coordination with some of the techniques that we talk about in the pelvic health world as well.
So, what would be some common pelvic health symptoms that may be influenced by the nervous system dysregulation?
Yeah, so bladder urgency comes to mind immediately, right? And this is, I think everybody can kind of see that connection. I will say, I got so scared I peed my pants. Like, where's that connection coming from, right? That's the number one connection, or I pooped my pants, whatever the thing is. What? That is your nervous system dial got cranked up really fast, really intensely, and that input went where? To the bladder, made the bladder contract, and you peed your pants.
Mhm.
Urgency is another piece of that. We've all been in that situation where the bladder is pretty full and you're like, I'm going to need to go to the bathroom soon. Say you're again at a concert or something, you round the corner and the line is out like forever. And immediately you go into panic mode. Oh my gosh, I'm going to pee my pants. And that makes the urgency worse,
Worse.
right? So there is this, the other thing people say, oh, I get a nervous belly. If I have to get up and talk in front of a group of people, I just immediately have to go use the bathroom. I'm not talking about number one. That is, again, nervous system input, making the GI tract do more than it might otherwise. So there's a direct connection there. And certainly bladder urgency is one of my favorite things to treat, because if we can teach folks how to quiet down the nervous system, along with the other things that might be happening, right? There might be some pelvic floor weakness. There might be irritation of the bladder lining with something that you're eating or drinking. But the nervous system piece of this, I believe, should be our first stop. So bladder urgency, number one. Gut related things, we're starting to actually see, I think, at least my algorithm, which might be a little different, is pointing to the fact that we're making better connections with gut health and the nervous system. We know that there's a direct line. And again, the gut has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system that interacts with the central nervous system via the vagus nerve. So we know if nervous system dials turned up, that's when we see constipation. That's when we see IBS type symptoms. And the bummer with that is, I think for so long, especially women, go to get help for something like IBS and they're told you just need to learn to relax. And that is the wrong way. I mean, that might be true, but that is the wrong way to like, what? What
It's
do you
not the
mean by
right way
that?
to put it into words.
No, what do you mean by that? Can you give me some specific strategies for that, please? And it's like, no, just go and learn how to relax. And I would say instead, we're going to lean into some of these little strategies that we can put in our day throughout the day that might help turn down the system a little bit or turn up the system depending on what you need. And then your gut can start to follow suit. And then any pain conditions, anytime we're talking about pain, challenges with persistent pain or acute pain for that matter, the nervous system has to play a role in that for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's say, how would you say trauma and life experiences, how would they show up in the body, particularly in the pelvis?
Yeah. So I think where your body has been up to this point, and when I'm working with patients, I will actually say, tell me about the things you love to do growing up. Tell me about the activities you did. And I know some people are like, what? But I want to know, where has your body and your spirit and your brain been up to this point? And oftentimes, when you ask questions like that, folks can tap into something they really enjoyed a long time ago that they don't do anymore because of XYZ. It also lets me know there are certain, I joke, I shouldn't generalize, but anyone who grew up as a dancer, an ice skater, a gymnast, they're doing different things with their body than the bookworm who kind of just was playing out in the neighborhood, which I think is a great thing to do, or the athlete who was a rotation athlete their whole life. It helps us know mechanically where have they been, but also what has their nervous system been doing up to this point. And then trauma plays a role. It always does. And everyone quotes the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I think that can be a great book. It's pretty heavy. And I think it sometimes can be a little too much for folks. We know that anything we've experienced in our body could potentially cause us to grip or protect or feel a certain way. Again, the analogy that I give here is if you came through my door of my treatment space and I punched you in the tummy, if you came through my door again and I punched you again, if you're silly enough to come through my door one more time, I'm pretty sure you'd be coming through the door doing the
I
guarding
love
or
that
like, right?
analogy. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So think about how we move through the world. If we had an experience with a certain thing, we might be kind of, oof, I don't know about this. Or maybe we're walking around the world a little guarded all the time, depending on what our experiences were through the years.
I like
So
that.
where's your body been? Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
It works.
So, for example, like women who have dyspareunia or pain with intercourse. I'll
Mhm.
tell them, hey, if you had pain once, your body's going to remember. And then they see something coming at it and they're going to go, no. And
Yeah,
they
and
tense
then they
up.
grip more. Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Exactly.
uh-huh.
So that totally
Yeah, and
makes
it's
sense.
interesting because this is the variance in our nervous systems. Because some women might have an experience with pain with intercourse, and they never grip it, they never, protect themselves, and they're fine, they move along, and then why does the next person who experienced that then kind of guard for a very long time? And again, that is all the variables that led you to this point right now, and again, making sure everyone understands those things can be overcome, right? It's just a matter of some nervous systems need a little more priming and
Right.
some are pretty suggestive right off the bat.
And trauma isn't just physical trauma.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I feel that people don't really know what the word trauma means.
Yeah. So I like to think of trauma. And again, this is, some mental health therapists who specialize in these things would be a great resource here. And that's reminds me to say anytime I'm working with folks, I want to make sure people understand I'm a physical therapist. So we're going to
Right.
talk about how the nervous system feels in your body. And
Mm.
if I have anybody who shared with me any history or it's seeming like we might need more support, for sure, I stay in my lane. I invite the mental health therapist to be part of the equation. And sometimes I won't continue to treat until we have a mental health therapist on board, depending on what the situation is. But yes, trauma is an experience in the body, and it doesn't need to be some of the big things we think of as trauma. It can be little aggressions that have
Built up over time, maybe.
affected you over
Yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah, that's a really important thing to say because I think there's lots of women, especially, who'd be like, "Oh no, no, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad." It's like, yeah, it wasn't that bad, but over a 10-year period, perhaps that situation you had at work affected you in the body quite a bit.
Right. And like you were saying about mental health, I totally agree with you. It's not our lane per se, but everything we do and everything other disciplines do, they all kind of touch upon each other. So if a
Yes.
patient is referred to me for constipation, or let's say the opposite, fecal incontinence, which is when the stool comes out, I can't always do my job without the assistance of a dietitian or a nutritionist who's
Amen.
going to help them eat properly to improve their stool formation so that us as physical therapists can then help strengthen the muscles
Amen.
because we know that the muscles of the or external anal sphincter can't hold liquid.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good pause for the dietitians because I think they're the most underutilized healthcare provider out there. And
I
I can't say enough about the registered dietitians. I just think they're so underutilized. Anyway, that's just my
No,
thing.
I agree. Whenever I get referred a patient with whatever issue, bowel issue, I feel like I'm always messaging their primary care physician who referred them to me saying, please refer them to a dietitian. I can't do
Please.
this alone.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what are some simple ways that listeners can begin supporting their nervous system today?
Yeah, I like to talk about strategies for the nervous system in kind of three categories. We've got breathing. We've got, I call them touch points. It's actually using your hands on your body to help you feel some kind of safety. And then movement. And movement can be as simple as think about what movements babies like when they are upset or crying. What do? We rock them, we bounce them, we move in some rhythmic fashion. The nervous system typically likes rhythm. So dancing, and you'll see me hula hooping with lots of my postpartum women because I just feel like we play a little and we get that rhythm going. And not just postpartum, but I hula hoop with lots of my folks. And yes, they think I'm crazy, but it's fine. We're good with it.
No, I remember
So,
that from your course and loved the idea. And again,
yeah.
I forgot. I was like, I need to get a hula hoop.
Yeah, yeah.
A
It's
weighted
really it's
hula hoop?
yeah,
Easy.
the weighted hula hoops are actually more helpful for folks that haven't hula hooped in a while because the momentum of the hoop helps them learn it. So
Okay.
it doesn't have to be super weighted, but not the really cheap plastic ones, because they're really light and it's hard for folks to kind of feel the rhythm of that. It becomes more herky jerky. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They
If it's
fall
been a minute,
straight to my feet.
yes, yes. So you would do well with a more weighted one, something a little more gusto. When we talk about the breath work piece of this, I'd like to also make sure that folks understand The way that breath work is presented is that, oh, do this, this will feel good to you. And again, it's incredibly variable. Some folks love an extended exhale breath where we might take a slow inhale through our nose for 3 seconds, and then we would exhale with a sigh for an extended breath. That feels good to a lot of people. But making sure that we're also giving permission to folks that are like, I really don't like that breath. It does not feel good to me. The most important thing about breath work is taking a moment to see how it feels, how it resonates with you, and deciding, does that feel supportive to me, or does that make me feel more fill in the blank, anxious, tired, whatever? So there's a million different types of breath work. There's an extended breath. There's equal breath where we take the same length of a breath in to the same length of a breath out. We could do retentions where we hold the breath in certain areas. Not everybody loves that. So that's not the first thing that I go to. The first thing I go to is, do you hold your breath? Check in throughout the day. And I promise you, the majority of folks who will hear this hold their breath way more than they think they do. So I will usually give an assignment every time you use the bathroom. I'd like you to use the bathroom, wash your hands, place your hands right here, and take 3 long breaths. Don't care how long, just 3 breaths. Every time you get in your car, when you go to turn the key in the ignition or push the start button, 3 breaths. So we're trying to just hack into whatever it is you do a couple times throughout the day. Every time you fill your water bottle, 3 breaths. So we're hacking into a day and saying, just check in with your breath. And you will start to notice you're probably holding your breath way more than you think. And P.S., when you hold your breath, we're telling the nervous system something's wrong, right? And the other important thing about breathing is we know the diaphragm goes up and down as we inhale and exhale. And that actually massages the vagus nerve that runs right through the diaphragm. It gives that vagus nerve some good mobility. And that in and of itself can be nervous system connection. So breathing. Then we've got the touch points that I refer. Touch points, I will have folks take their hands and place them in certain areas of their body, their jaw, their chest, the back of their head, and place their hands there so that you can just feel what's happening in those areas. And we're kind of supporting those areas. And those are areas where the vagus nerve travels to. And we're giving some input to the body, to the vagus nerve, to your whole system. So we've got the breathing, we've got the touch points, and we've got movement. Those would be the 3 different categories of strategies that I like to introduce for nervous system regulation.
And is there a place where people could find the different types of breathing techniques, the different types of moving techniques,
For
touching
sure.
techniques?
For sure. And, once you jump into that side of the internet, you're going to get all kinds of suggestions. And if you even search different types of breath work, you're going to come up with at least 15 different versions of breath work. And what I would say is focusing on one type of breath work, one type of touch point, kind of self massage. And in some areas, you'll see this referred to as somatic work. You're just getting into the body and feeling what is the body doing, or different types of movement. You'll see yoga type movements when we're talking about nervous system regulation. So yeah, you can find them all over the place.
So, what about the role of sleep, nutrition, and social connection? What do they play in nervous system
Yes.
health?
So I think for the longest time, and particularly our generation, we are kind of like the grind culture, just go, you're fine, push through, you're resilient, blah, 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 all the things. The idea of rest, recovery, sleep, not really in our purview for a long time. And I think, when we're hitting perimenopause and menopause, we're like, oh, wait, the recovery part of this, the sleep part of this is really important. The ability for you to recover, to truly recover, is so important to the nervous system. The rub comes in when someone can't sleep for lots of different reasons and everyone's telling them they need to sleep. All that does is turn up their nervous system dial. They're like, well, I can see I need to sleep and I can't sleep. And then it's this whole thing. So that's where I will usually counsel, let's make it less about, are you sleeping? And let's just do some breathing. Let's do some touch points. Let's do a little bit of gentle movement before bed. Work on all the other sleep hygiene things. The room is cool, the lights are down, your phone is away from you, all the things that you don't want to do, and start to work on that part. Hormone management for folks that are perimenopausal or menopausal can also be an important component here, right? We know the nervous system and the endocrine system ride together,
Mhm.
neuroendocrine system. And when the endocrine system starts to take a little bit of a hit for whatever reason, the nervous system will become a little more dysregulated. So leaning into the nervous system component to help make up for that lack of endocrine input can be helpful. You mentioned nutrition. Again, probably the thing I rely on my dietitian friends the most, but it's important. We know this. What we put in matters. The fuel that we're getting matters to the whole system, including the nervous system. You said sleep. You said diet
Nutrition and social connection. But
and social connection.
before we
Yes.
move on to social connection, I just want to make sure everybody understands what the endocrine system is, which
Thank
is
you.
our hormones. So going through perimenopause and menopause, there's a lot of hormonal changes that can affect our sleep, and regulating one helps regulate the other.
Correct. So when especially, when we talk about perimenopause, we're usually talking about estrogen, progesterone, sometimes testosterone, but progesterone helps us be calm, helps with sleep, other things do too. When our estrogen diminishes, that's where we see some of the hot flashes, and that in and of itself will disrupt our sleep, which then has an effect on our nervous system. So it's a cycle, right? It's a catch 22. If one area is having a hard time, it'll affect the other. All this to say, for folks that can't do hormone management, they get left out of the conversation a lot. And I'm here to say, no, 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 no. This is why we're talking about these nervous system strategies. So we can lean into them a little bit more. Certainly, if hormone management is on the table for you, seen it be incredibly, including for myself, incredibly helpful in bolstering the nervous system. But
Right.
do not despair if that's not something that is not in your purview. You can come over here and focus on some of these strategies.
Right. And for one, the one that we were going to get to is the social connection and how
Yes,
that
social.
plays into the nervous system and its
Yeah, so
health.
social connection is that co-regulation. And again, there are different versions of that, right? Some folks, you and I, for example, if we're working with patients all day long, we're co-regulating, we're connecting, we're being social. We might need that when we get home if someone says, "Hey, let's go out." That's the last thing I feel like doing on a Friday. Like, talk to me tomorrow on Saturday, but I'm going to need this night to just do nothing. So when we talk about social connection, it has to be a meaningful thing for you at the time. And again, that can be your connection with your pet. That can be your connection with, again, that cashier at the checkout at the grocery store that you see when you go in there and you have a nice exchange. That's connection. That can be connection with a good friend. And I think that's really important. As my mom used to say, you don't need a ton of friends, you just need a few good ones, right? She was right about that. So I think that social connection piece, especially for folks that are introverts, they hear social connection and they're immediately their nervous system's like, no, thank you. It's got to feel meaningful to you. So it's not saying if you're an introvert, you need to force yourself into a club to go make connections. It's what is meaningful to you, one on one with a friend, chatting with a neighbor over the fence, snuggling with your puppy dog, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the puppy dog one,
hmm Sometimes that's the best way to regulate. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Are there simple grounding practices that someone can do in under 5 minutes?
Yes. I would say if you can afford yourself a couple minutes, even wherever you are. So, whether you're standing somewhere, whether you're sitting somewhere, whether you're lying down, the first thing you can do is feel your body. So, for instance, I'm sitting here in this chair. I might sit up tall in my chair and I'm going to start down on my feet and just pause. I'm going to look out this window out into the furthest place I can see outside. There's a beautiful tree off in the distance and I'm going to feel my feet on the floor. I'm barefoot right now. Can I feel all five toes on the floor? Can I feel my bottom of my foot touching the floor? Does that feel cold to me? Does that feel warm to me? So, getting into the senses a little bit is what we're getting at here. And then feeling my seat touching the chair. Do I feel like I'm on one side more than the other? Can I feel my seat underneath me? Can I roll my shoulders up, back, and down? Can I take a breath in and sigh it out? Pretty simple stuff,
So
right? So, it's
that's more mindfulness versus, let's say,
Mhm.
someone who says, don't tell me to meditate. I can't meditate. That's a great alternative.
Correct. If you can get into your senses, and I've seen this around and about, and I think I recommended it to folks too. Use Go through each of your senses. What do you taste in your mouth right now? You
Are
know,
you
I had
asking
a
me?
mint. Yeah, yeah. What do
Coffee!
you Natalie? What do you taste? Yes, coffee. So you have the residue of coffee. I have the residue of a mint I put in, and then you can go to what do you hear in your space? Right now, you're hearing my voice in your headphones, but what do you hear? Look up. What can you see? What does it feel like with your feet on the floor, your seat on the chair? So it seems ridiculous, but sometimes just coming into your senses in this moment, what do we get? We got seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling. What am I missing?
Smelling?
Thank you. Smelling. Yes, smelling. Thank you. What do you smell right now? You know, and that can be, I have just a essential oil over here. I like the smell of bergamot, and I will sometimes just block a nostril, smell, just let my brain smell the thing. When you are tapping into your senses, it brings you to right now. You can't perseverate too far ahead. You can't be dwelling too far behind. We're right now. What do my feet feel like on the floor? So we can call this mindfulness. People are allergic to that. So I won't refer to it as mindfulness. Sometimes I say, we're just going to do our little sensory check.
I love that. Yeah.
Yes. So whatever words work for you, people will say, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. I'm like, we don't need to meditate. Let's just sit here for a moment and go through the senses. And you'll see they'll do that. I'll be like, hey, bud, you just meditated. Good job.
That's okay. I love how you phrase that. That's great. If listeners only remember one takeaway from today's conversation, what would you want it to be?
Fantastic question. Um, Meet your nervous system where it is and know that it's adaptable. I think that's the big one.
Yeah, it is, because I don't think people truly understand that it's adaptable.
Yeah. I mean, how often I hear someone say, well, that's just how I am. So it's like, okay, well, it's adaptable. It's adaptable. We just have to give you the input that is most meaningful to you if we need it to adapt in a different direction.
I love
Mhm.
that. Where can people learn more about your work and how to connect with you?
Yeah, so I do a fair amount of social media on Instagram. I'm PT for Women there. You can find me. I have a website with my name and Duch.com. Where I have some of my courses there, my Vegas courses there. I'm having a birthday sale at the end of July, so I'm turning 55, so it'll be 55% off
Love
everything.
it. Wait, are
Not
they
to sound
courses for the general public or are they courses
Yes,
for other
courses for
practitioners?
courses for the general public. The one I
Awesome.
did with Tracy was for practitioners, but
Right.
these are courses for the general public. I have a bladder urgency.
Love that.
mm, I have the Vegas course. I have a breathing explain, and a bone health one, which is kind of,
Awesome. Okay.
yeah,
No, that's good to know because I'm all
great.
about getting the information out to the general public
Yeah, for
in a
sure.
way that they better understand it versus just, I feel like it's all about prevention. And if you understand what's going on, you could prevent the problems from getting worse.
Correct, correct. So, and get it out to the general public. I think as PT, sometimes we're talking to each other in a vacuum, and we need to make it out there.
I agree. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
So
Couldn't agree
I love
more.
the work you're doing.
Well, I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for being here today and for helping provide such a positive impact on people's lives because it's
Wonderful.
so important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Yeah, We're Going There with Dr. Natalie. If this conversation helped you feel more informed or less alone, consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing the episode. Until next time, yeah, we're going there because knowledge drives better health. This episode of Yeah, We're Going There is brought to you by Kindra. Kindra products offer full spectrum relief from vaginal dryness, discomfort, sensitivity, itching, burning, and stinging. Their products, which include vaginal moisturizers, silicone lubricant, and pH-balanced shower and bath gel, are clinically tested and OB-GYN approved. Hormone-free, paraben-free, phthalate-free, and FSA, HSA eligible. Recommended by over 7,500 medical providers and loved by over 330,000 women, including myself, I personally love the vulvovaginal hydration and relief duo and use them on the nights I don't apply my vaginal estrogen. To save 20% off your next order, go to www.ourkindra.com and enter code Dr. Natalie at checkout. I really think you'll love it as much as I do.